Hello, welcome to Good Work Now, your resource for finding and creating good work. One of the most frequent complaints I hear from managers is regarding their teams, that their team members are fighting and they can't get along. I'm so glad to have back with us on Good Work Now Dr. Jeff Graddy, who's going to help us explore this issue of team leadership. How can you as a leader be more effective at managing your team? And Jeff Graddy is a senior associate with the Leadership Research Institute. He's also an executive coach and leadership development consultant, and he works with hundreds of managers on this very challenging issue of effectively leading your team. What are some of the best practices for effectively leading teams?
I think there's a couple things, but I would actually boil it all into one big category, which is credibility. So when you think about a leader at any level, but if we just focus on team leadership for a second, if the people that you're leading don't think that you're credible, then there's an issue, there's a problem. You're going to be less effective at actually leading that team if you're missing some aspect of your credibility. So when you think about what are the best practices, part of the issue you have to think about is, well, what makes me a credible leader? What makes people want to follow me or listen to me, even if they don't agree, or even if they've worked late all week, or even if, whatever these barriers might be to getting people to kind of full functioning or kind of full productivity. So I'll give you one example, communication, right? Over and over again in my own practice, you see that people feel under-communicated with, that they're not getting communication enough, and they're not getting the right kinds of communication. So for example, people would prefer to hear more often from their leader, and they want to hear more details about what's the overall strategy for this year or for the next 3 years. Part of why that is people work better and are more engaged and are more productive if they understand how their work fits into what the company is trying to accomplish, or maybe what the business unit is trying to accomplish. If my boss comes to me and says, I want you to do this by the end of the month, and have a report to me, if I don't really understand why I'm working on this report or why I'm working on this project, I'm less likely to be engaged. I'm less likely to know how to adapt to a unique situation that comes up, maybe dealing with another team member or a customer. So when you think about communication, over-communicating, right? Communicating more often and communicating more depth to the team is one best practice. I think a second big one is making sure that you're doing what you say you're going to do. I hear a lot of complaints from team members, from employees, that my boss, my manager, my leader doesn't always follow through, doesn't always says what he or she says they're going to do, and that hurts your credibility. So if I'm trying to be a credible leader, I want to make sure that my team sees me as a person who has not only high integrity in kind of the traditional sense of the term, right, that I'm not going to kind of break any rules or violate any kind of ethical guidelines, but that I actually am going to do what I say I'm going to do. If I promise X, I'm going to deliver on X. If I say that I hold people accountable, when somebody doesn't perform, I'm going to hold them accountable. And I just hear a lot of complaints pretty consistently that when this doesn't happen, people lose faith or lose a little bit of kind of the credibility that they give their leader. So there's a best practice around making sure that not only you're communicating effectively, but that you're doing what you say you're going to do kind of at every level.
I would think that perception management is going to be very important for a team leader, meaning they need to be very conscious of their actions. Things that they consider to be very insignificant could be quite significant in the eyes of the employees or team members.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's so critical for leaders especially, although all employees, but leaders especially, to have good emotional intelligence. Because if they don't have good emotional intelligence, they may be missing opportunities to do exactly what you mentioned, which is to connect with an employee on a very small thing that it seems to me as a leader wouldn't be that important, but to the employee is either really exciting or maybe really devastating. So some offhand comment I make as a leader, I think leaders can underestimate their power sometimes.
Yes.
Right? Because as you and I might kind of go around day to day as a leader doing our job, because we're so busy, because we're all focused on our own stuff more so than other people's stuff usually, we may forget how much impact we can have on any individual or any individual team member. So remembering that an offhand comment can have a really negative impact if you're not careful with your words, or remembering that a little bit of an attaboy or attagirl, hey, thanks for doing such a great job. Hey, thanks for working late last week. I know that was inconvenient, but it really made the difference because we got our figures out on time to the senior leadership team, and they were really impressed.
I would think that equal distribution of time and recognition on the part of the team leader is going to be important. Otherwise, employees could be perceiving that as favoritism.
Yep. I think I would even pull it back to this idea of emotional intelligence, because if you have a good awareness of your own style and your own both kind of analytical as well as emotional state of being, as well as can read other people well, then even if occasionally you make a mistake, you'll know it, right? Or you're more likely to know it. So, aha, I've really been ignoring employee D this last month because I've been so busy focused on this major project, and they've been working on something that's important but less kind of visible at this point. So I haven't really, I had to cancel the meeting I had with them. We didn't have their one-on-one development meeting this month. And I was out of town when they gave the presentation to the broader team. All of a sudden they may be feeling ignored. But aha, I pick up on that.
Right.
And so then I can address it. Maybe I just address it directly. I say, hey, look, I know that we haven't connected in the last month, but I really appreciate all the work you've been putting in. This is really going to pay off next month when you present again in front of the broader leadership team. I think that's going to be really critical. So thanks, and sorry we haven't caught up lately.
Okay, Jeff, thank you so much for giving us these wonderful tips on how to manage or lead effective teams. And if you have any questions for Jeff, he can be reached at drjeffgraddy@gmail.com. And of course, if you have any input or questions for me, I can be reached at brianmoffett@comcast.net. And feel free to visit our website where you can watch other episodes of Good Work Now at goodworknow.com. Until next time, keep up the good work.